So, I understand there's not going to be a lot of people on tonight. And I was just thinking about these things. And I had to say it before I went to bed. I was about to go to bed, and I was thinking about this whole ordeal. And I know the first time I did one of these talks like this with the guitar, I talked a lot about religion and God and the Bible and such. Maybe that was because I was philosophically stoned, and I tend to... And that might be a little bit of a touchy subject there, huh? You think? It might be a little bit of a touchy subject to talk about, like, thinking about God and things like that. Stoned, you know, like... But I've always, I don't know, felt more of a connection then. And I know that's probably blasphemous for a lot of people to hear, but what are you going to do? But I was thinking, my favorite book of the Bible has always been Job. And I say always been, always meaning that when I finished the Bible and read all of it, and got to choose what my favorite book was. And that was probably about, I don't know, 11 years ago, 10 years ago. So anyway, for those not familiar with the story of Job, Job was a very wealthy man. He had a family and 3 beautiful daughters. And the reason that Job is my favorite book is because it opens up with God and the devil just having a conversation, just talking like buddies. And God says to the devil, "Consider my servant Job. You can do anything you want to him." The funny thing is God first asked Satan, he's like, "Where have you been?" And he says, "I've been walking to and fro up and down the earth." And that's just always been really creepy. Anyway, God says, "Consider my servant Job. He will never forsake me. He will never curse my name." And the devil's like, "I bet he will. And I'm willing to bet that I can make him do it." And God said, "You know what? You can't do it, so why don't you go ahead and try?" So literally, God gives the devil permission to try to ruin this guy's life, which is morbid in itself, but also kind of beautiful in a way, because he's so confident that Job's love for him will last throughout anything that the devil can put him through. So that being said, the devil took away his wife, his 3 kids, all of his cattle, all of his riches, all of his wealth, gave him boils on his skin, and all through all of that, all of his friends were saying, "Why don't you curse God for putting all of this negativity on you?" And Job would always say, "No, I will never do anything but praise God's name." So I got to thinking about that just a little bit ago, and thinking that I bet whenever the very first thing that happened to Job, which I think the first thing that happened was that his wife passed away, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been his cattle or something dying off first, but who knows. I'm sure that when the very first thing that happened to Job happened, that he made up his mind that he was not gonna curse the name of God no matter what happened. Right then, henceforth establishing his faith to himself. That means nothing could change that and nothing could shake it. And the reason that I bring up Job today is because of what happened in the middle of the podcast earlier when somebody called and reported some bullshit at my address. And this is a really long analogy, and I'm kind of stick with me with it. Whenever this thing happened earlier, that was the first thing like it that's ever happened to me. And I decided right then that if I wanted to go further with this thing online that I want to do, and I do want to go further with this thing online. I enjoy talking to the internet. You know, I enjoy talking to y'all. And I don't think I'm ever going to stop that. And I think I decided that earlier just because stop that. I got my drink out of the freezer. So speaking of that, yeah, I decided earlier today, well, actually right before I started doing this, that there were two options here. I don't even have, and I mentioned this in our last talk too, that I don't have a lot of followers. I don't have a huge range as of right now. I do wish to have one day. I wish to have a large range one day, but I don't right now, and that's fine. But to have a small range that I already have right now, and to have someone to try to hoodwink my podcast in the middle of my live stream and call and use the same script that's been used over and over when people are swatting, and a term that I learned today. And yeah, if I'm at this point and that's happened, I figure that right now, I make up my mind to, no matter what goes on outside of this, if anything like that happens again, or any negative thing that I suffer from in the future, I'm making up my mind to stick with it as of right now. And like, you would think that obviously this person would get a notification when I go live, and they would call and report the crime of me shooting my wife in the face, and I want to shoot whoever else is in the house as well, and then making them come over here. So now I believe that my address is in their system as having this happen before falsely. So, boy who cried wolf, right? Peach water, by the way, is delicious. Boy who cried wolf. These people have already tried to hijack my podcast. So I don't think that'll happen again. But in talking to other people, I've heard that there are other things that might happen. Like my address could very well have gotten passed around to a circle of pretty much trolls that'll just mail me a bunch of dumb shit or you know, whatever have you. But anyway, the reason that I bring Job into this is because Job lost everything. He had everything taken away from him within an inch of his life, and he did not turn his back on the Lord. And because of that, the Lord gave him a wife and 3 daughters once again, 3 times as many cattle as he had and money and such. And I understand that he still lost his original wife, his original daughters. But I don't think that this story is so much, and bear with me here, I know this might be sacrilegious to say, but I don't think the story is as much factual as it is a parable in a way. I think the Bible speaks in riddles, and I think that's its trick. And if you read the entire Bible, I believe that it teaches you to understand that it speaks in riddles. And it means, and I think that's what Jesus is for. They say Jesus was the key. Jesus was the bring on the new set of laws. I think Jesus was the key. And what did Jesus do? He spoke in parables. So I believe Jesus came to show you that all the things that happened in the Old Testament and all the things that happened basically in the entire Bible is just a big parable. I think that that's all literally what it is. And I think that's what Jesus being the key means. I just burped up Walmart pizza. And just knowing that God rewarded Job with everything that he had taken away from him. I plugged in that analogy to this situation and was like, if this is just the first of many things that could go wrong, or many things that I could potentially have to deal with in the future if I continue to do this and grow the viewership and grow the reach of this, basically prayer of Jabez, more shout out Bible stuff for you, the prayer of Jabez, broaden my territory. I figure that, yeah, I've made up my mind now that that no matter what, I'm gonna continue to do this, because nothing has made me happier than being able to vent when I need to vent. Because my biggest thing is hating to be around people. I really fucking hate to be around people, and I think you guys probably can tell that by now. I'm just not good around people. I'm not good at being around people. And I mean, I am to an extent, but inside I'm not good at being around people. And I just really needed this, and I didn't know that it was a thing, but obviously now it is kind of like giving me a place where I can put the things that bother me in my life and put the things that really would keep me awake at night and vent it out, like speaking about the elephant in the room before it becomes that. And that's really what I've been using this for. And I know I've gone live 3 times today because I've just had shit that I needed to get out, and I may go live 3 more times tomorrow. I don't fucking know, but if I have something inside of me that I don't want to leave inside, then I have to do this. So just understand that, whether it be one of us, myself, me here talking to myself, or 1,000 of us, I just need to have this documented and banked so that I can look back on it one day. And I've smoked a joint to the dome, so I'm probably a little more heightened in the awareness than normal, and thinking about this thing a little more than normal, and having talked to some people who have somewhat experience in this field and listening to their thoughts on what could be next. And I'm not really worried about it at all, just because I don't see the good in it. I don't see the good in worrying. I don't see how that will change anything. And plus, when all that happened today, it kind of took me by surprise. So like, I really didn't have time to react in a negative way. And obviously, because I'm just me, and I think that everybody in the world knows me, I was just like, oh, hey, you guys need some help? Sure, I'm willing to help you. I'll step outside. Sure. And then they tell me what they tell me, and like, oh, okay, so you thought this was me? And I kind of laugh. And I was like, I mean, we're in here talking about sports, man. But that thing really, I was listening, and I don't know why it popped up on my YouTube, but it was a Gavin McInnes video of him talking about Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan and Jack Dorsey talking about him. And he was saying something about how Joe Rogan just hates when people say negative things, because Jack Dorsey went on Joe Rogan's podcast. And Jack Dorsey, by the way, is the CEO and founder of Twitter. And he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and apparently Joe Rogan didn't hit him hard enough on subjects that people were interested in. And they voiced that opinion, and Joe Rogan immediately apologized grandly and wanted to have Jack back to have a more in-depth conversation and cover the topics that his listeners had thought that he had missed. And I really sympathized with that. And I mean, Gavin sort of spoke about it like it was an issue that he really thought about what people thought of him. And I don't think that's a negative thing at all. I really believe that that's how he's got to where he is just being considerate of what other people do think of him. And I think there's a whole big difference. There's a really big difference in changing yourself to conform to what other people think that you should, and actually bettering yourself and trying to be something that really won't piss anybody off. And I know that that's a really maybe a harsh way to talk about it, but you don't want to piss anybody off, right? You want to try to go through this thing as seamlessly as possible and and don't take this in the wrong way, as little of a ripple as possible. You want to leave a giant ripple in the ways of the world as far as, what you leave on the world, but you don't want to make a negative ripple. You want that to be a very positive ripple. And I believe that it's just easier to conform to other people's ideologies and things, or not conform, but to just accept that. It's easier to accept something that you don't understand about somebody else than it is to just immediately find negativity in it. And I think it is anyway. I believe that it's easier, or it makes life easier rather. It might not be as easy. I think actually it is easier to respond with anger than it is to respond or negatively than with positivity. But I do believe that the reward, the payout, is so much bigger. Like you're only getting like 2-to-1 odds on negativity, but you're getting like 21-to-1 odds on positivity for sure. If there's any betting heads out there, you're getting big payouts on banking on the positivity. And there's just something, I don't know, there's just something about fucking negativity that people just flock towards. And I used to be one of those people. I really was. And it wasn't that long ago. It was probably within the last couple of years for sure that I would just immediately, no matter what happened, I would immediately side to the negative side. Like I would try to find the most negative part of it. And God, that was just so fucking tiring. What if I could have been like Job the whole time? What if I could have, the entire time, I just had all this negative shit happening to me. But Job still praised the Lord. Of course it hurt that he lost his family and he lost everything. But he still just kept his mind set on God. What if I could have done that? What if I do that? What if I do that? I don't think that could hurt anything at all. If I were to start Jim Carrey had a similar revelation there's a documentary on Netflix called Jim and Andy. I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan, was all my life. My grandmother's, one of her favorite movies was Ace Ventura. She loved watching him talk with his ass. She thought that was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. But he played Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon, and there's a really good documentary on Netflix called Jim and Andy about how Jim pretty much goes full on Andy. He almost gets possessed by Andy Kaufman in this film. And he started thinking at the end of the documentary, he starts talking about, like, I just laid down myself and I just became Andy Kaufman. He said, what if I did that could I do that with anybody? And he's like, what if I did that with Jesus? What if I just loved everybody as selflessly as Jesus did and gave as selflessly as he did? Huh. That might be where that subconscious seed came from. I get those a lot. Like a small thing that I'll see one day, and then it'll plant a subconscious seed that won't grow until, well, I guess it does take a while for actual seeds to show growth, right? I guess that's why that analogy exists. Interesting. What if I decided to do that now? Just to lay everything down and... I don't think I could do it. I don't think I'm strong enough to, like, literally abandon everything and just... Plus, I think this way is more effective, you know? I think people have a better time connecting with you and accepting you when you appear to be more like them. And I think that to go and be that, like to be, if I literally were Jesus Christ today, if I were exactly how he was 2,000 years ago, I think that I would 100% stand out amongst everybody. And there may be something beautiful that would make you want to follow something like that. But in these days, I think people are just so much more apt to listen to those who are more like them. And I might get shit for playing middle of the road on everything, but I don't think that's a bad place to be. And that's literally where I live, is the middle of the road. I'm not trying to... Como se dice? I'm not trying to put on a character. I'm not trying to put on a mask just to get accepted in the circles that I want to be accepted in. This is actually how I live and actually what I believe. I'm right straight down in the middle of the road on everything. Politically, I can't be grouped with either side, right or left. And I've done that strategically. Even though that is 100% what I believe, I have literally altered my beliefs to that so that I can feel better about knowing that I'm offending the fewest people possible. Because if you are on the right, you are offending, let's say that right and left are, let's say 40% and 40%. And in the middle is the other 20. So if I'm on the right, I'm offending 40% of the people in the country. If I am on the left, I'm offending 40% of the people of the country. If I'm right in the middle, I'm not offending anybody. People right in the middle that don't give a shit, it doesn't matter what you believe, because they're not going to fault you for it. And if you don't fault them for what they believe, they have no right to fault you for it. And if they do, then that's on them, not you. You know, they're credited with that L, not you. I don't know why I like this progression so much. I really like minor chords. I always have. Buddy Timmy Pierce, he's a listener. He watches. Calls me out all the time. Boy, you love me in minor chords. I do. Matter of fact, on my gravestone, I wanted to simply read, "Never underestimate the power of a minor chord." See, that makes it a minor. So no matter what major diminished you drop to, it still sounds like a minor. That's the only true minor. But that kind of sounds like a minor. This definitely does, and this absolutely does. So that little, which inevitably is a D major, gives a little piece of minor if it's left in there and all of them. I just love that. Sounds evil. I don't know why I love the evil stuff. It's probably got a lot to do with why Job's my favorite book of the Bible, because it's the only book of the Bible where it shows God and the devil actually having a conversation as, I'm not going to say equals. I was about to say equals, but that's not right. As civil beings. You know, usually you think of them as the battle between good and evil the entire time, but to have a civil conversation with each other, I really like the fact that God was literally basically like, where have you been? And he's like, walking around the earth, to and fro and up and down it. And they just have a conversation, and that literally puts them to the point to where they're literally just, they're betting on us. They're literally just betting on us. And it's funny to look at. When you look at it like that, it's funny to look at it from that perspective. But I always felt like the devil got too bad of a rap just because he's one of God's creations too. And that might be the most controversial thing that I've said, but he always gets a bad rap, and I just believe that if God is love, then why not love him too? You know, he was your creation. And I know that God hates sin, and that's basically what the devil is. But I feel bad for him, to be honest with you. And I don't think that's wrong, because I have a strong conviction from the Spirit. I have a strong convicted heart on things concerning religion, and I don't feel bad about feeling bad for the devil. So therefore, I feel like my conviction would not allow me to feel that way if it weren't justified. Wow. I don't know where any of that came from. See, that's why I like to do this. Because something always comes out that I didn't know that I had in there that just needed to get out. Funny. I love minor chords. Overhead the albatross hangs motionless upon the air, and deep beneath the rolling waves in labyrinths of coral caves, the echo of the distant tide lies willowing across the sand, and everything is green submarine, and no one knows where's the wise, and no one speaks and no one tries, no one speaks and no one flies, only if you ride the side. It actually goes. I love Pink Floyd. Gotta get some new strings on this bad girl tomorrow, Thursday. I got a gig on Friday, a gig on Saturday. I only got 2 this week. That kind of sucks. I need about 3 or 4 gigs a week to really stay on top of my shit the way that it needs to be stayed on top of. But yeah, two's fine, I guess. It's 5:30 in the morning. I'm going to go ahead and get some shut-eye. I should have already been in bed a couple hours ago, but I'm going to Walmart. I had to walk around and get out of the house and move around a little bit. Got some peach water. Anyway. Be good people. In a world full of shitty people, don't be those people. Be a good person. Peace, bitches.